Hi guys, the purpose of this video is just to go over the location status panel in Pitram, what it's used for, how it's configured, and why it's useful. So the idea of a status in Pitram at this point is pretty well established in the eyes of most people. Effectively, you assign statuses to your pieces of equipment. Is my truck idle? Is it operating? Is it down? And then you track that so that you get a better idea of the efficiency or the productivity throughout the fleet in the operation. What a lot of people don't know is that you can actually apply the exact same logic to locations. So you can make sure, or you can track the progression of a location as it changes states. You can track the utilization on the face. You can basically apply everything that we do to equipment statuses to locations as well. If it's something that would be cost effective for the operation, then it can be done. So we can go in and set it up in reference data. It's probably better that we have a specialist do the initial setup, and then once everything's put in place, it's very easy to add and remove location statuses in the same way that you would an equipment status. So as an example here, I have my location status panel set up. I've got a number of locations displayed, and I'm basically applying a stockpile progress status to these just through a drop down menu. So you see I hit my drop down and I have the option to set it to building, built, closed, or zeroed. And basically we can just track the progression of the stockpile through its life cycle. We get durations, and we can also see what equipment is working at the stockpile, and you can configure all of these little columns as well, which I'm going to cover next. So in terms of configuration, it's the same as it is with all other panels in Pitram. We hit this little configure properties button. We can edit the name. I have it just set to location status, which I'm quite happy with. We can select all of the locations that are visible. Right now I'm displaying all the locations in my system, but if I wanted to only look at, say, stockpile 3 through 4, or 3 through 6 rather, I would just do that, and now all of the other things that aren't these 4 locations are going to disappear when I finish my configuration. I have mine area set to display as an attribute, but I might also want to see the location type so I can be sure that I'm working on a stockpile. My primary location status in this case, because I'm working with this build, closed, zeroed, etc. Location statuses, will be stockpile progress, but you can have other things in there as well. We can configure utilization, so you can track, is the location sort of in a location equivalent to operating? Like, is it being used and utilized? Is it in an idle state? Is it inaccessible, etc.? So I'm just going to leave that on stockpile progress, which is these 4 here. We have some options just for event time, how long it's been in that status, and we can also set the colors based on the status color, which I've already set up. So I've made it so that my built status will always be yellow. My closed status will always be red, and that flows through into a lot of other panels within Pitram as well. That will flow through into reports as well. So you can essentially associate a color with the status in the same way that you do with your equipment. Normally we see sites when something is down, they set it to red, right? Because it's like a critical, you want to be able to notice it. This is down. You can do the exact same thing with location status, and that's what this section controls. This is just selecting what equipment is shown in this little column here, where I've got the equipment that is allocated to these locations. I've got it set on everything, and I'm happy with that. And then we have a secondary status classification. Because I don't have anything set up right now, I'm just going to leave this on stockpile progress as well, since this is the main one I'm working on. But you can kind of track a primary and a secondary location status. So maybe stockpile progress, and then you can also track utilization. What's interesting as well is that this will link through to Shift Planner. So your Shift Planner doesn't necessarily just have to apply to locations. You can apply a plan through Shift Planner onto locations as well as equipment. And that's what this section controls as well. So there we go. We have my 4 locations, and we can basically track these statuses throughout them. It's a very powerful tool. Whether or not it's useful, I think, depends on the operation. Some operations are more than happy just tracking equipment, but for some where they need to make sure that they're getting the most out of their active faces, this is really useful, particularly when it flows through into reporting, and you can look at whether or not we're doing everything as efficiently as we could be.